Did you ever dream of living on the moon? Well, as a kid, I did. And in the near future, your dream could come true. Hello, my name is Marion Bradshaw. I'm a mechanical engineering student performing research for a communications class at ACPI. And today we'll be talking to you about NASA's plan to set up a lunar base as a test site for new research and to create a hub for future exploration. Going back to the moon is the next step to landing on Mars. It will provide our society with the ability to test new equipment and to allow us to create rocket fuel on the moon. The first reason NASA is going back to the moon is to set up an orbital and surface base where we can conduct new tests on equipment. From the Washington Post, it lies just 3 days away, close enough for us to get home in a case of emergency, and is a natural place to practice how to sustain life in deep space. The equipment they plan on testing, according to Brian Dunbar from NASA, are new tools, instruments, and equipment that could be used on Mars, including human habitats, life support systems, and technologies, and practices that could help us build self-sustaining outposts away from Earth. Here's an example. You'll see this is a prototype of something they're currently working on in NASA. This hopefully one day will be on the moon. Another great example of this is the Toyota Moon Rover. They signed up for this in 2019 to create this moon rover, which astronauts will be able to live in for up to a couple days. All these tests will ultimately allow for future exploration, which is the second reason why NASA is going back to the moon. They're going back to the moon to also look for resources. Water was discovered on the moon a few years back in the form of ice. Here's a satellite scan of the moon. As you can tell in the photo, the blue areas mark out the North and South Pole where they suspect ice resides on the moon. Water is important because chemical compound if it's made of is hydrogen and oxygen, which we all learn in the chemistry class. NASA states liquid hydrogen is the signature fuel for America's space program. Of course, we can make both of these elements on Earth. Matter of fact, we have an abundance of it, but it's heavy. According to National Air and Space Museum, 90% of rockets' weight is in its fuel. This means it takes a huge amount of fuel just to get off the surface of the Earth. Another large amount of fuel would then be used to get to Mars, which is what NASA has its sights set on. With a hub or base on the moon that is producing hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel, then a spacecraft could potentially leave Earth with fuel, refuel on a lunar base, and a continuous trip to Mars. Here's another look at some of the craters on the moon. The darker blue areas are evidence of ice. They reside in the craters where sunlight doesn't necessarily always hit. NASA has already completed the first step to go back to the moon. This occurred in 2022 with Artemis 1 lifting off and returning to Earth after completing its trip to the moon and back. And here's a outline of all the Artemis programs in the near future. As you can tell, Artemis 2 is scheduled to take off in sometime in 2024. On this trip, astronauts will go around the moon and then come back to Earth. After this, 2025, they plan on actually landing back on the moon for a couple days to explore and look for the ice that they suspect to be there. From there, 2027, Artemis plans to start building a habitat. Going back to the moon is the next step in landing on Mars, and it'll provide our society with the ability to perform tests on new equipment and allow us to create rocket fuel on the moon. Thank you very much for your time.